Hi. Everyone has a favorite movie. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Getting to know somebody, it's a popular question to ask. You can tell a lot about a person by their favorite movie. Recently, I found that my answer to the question is rather controversial. I don't get it. Most of the time, people either really get my favorite movie, or they are like, oh, I don't know. But Shaun of the Dead remains one of my favorite all-time movie watches, even after watching it so many times. Not only for what you see on screen, although that's obviously a lot of it, but the lore behind it, how it was made, everything going on in the background, foreground, upground, downtown, all of it. The process of shooting it, its release, its reception. It's all really interesting and it makes it more enjoyable to watch for me. So yeah, this is my love letter to Shaun of the Dead. Enjoy.
Oh my mind. I believe in the feeling.
Edgar, middle name Wright, the creator of Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Last Night in Soho, first saw George Romero's Night of the Living Dead in college, planting the seed for what will one day become the world's best zombie rom-com. Simon Pegg was doing stand-up in Bristol when he met Nick Frost, blossoming into a beautiful buddy romance, a lot like the one we see in Shaun of the Dead. Sometime later, Pegg went to a show in London and met Edgar Wright, and thus an unstoppable trio was formed. The first project they work on together is a TV show called Spaced, which was huge in the UK. The TV show follows two unlikely roommates and the wacky characters they made along the way. I've only seen a couple of episodes, but it's pretty good. Episodes would often mimic the style of other forms of media. It was after doing a zombie episode where Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg hatched the idea to do a zombie movie. Quote, Simon and I got a minicab and were buzzing from doing this zombie episode. My thought was, fuck it, let's do a film. Goosebumps all over my body, all over, feel my arm, feel it. Simon and Edgar managed to sign a deal with film production company Film 4, conveniently owned by the same studio that produced Spaced. But we can ignore that, it's not nepotism if it's good. So that means that the production company is gonna pay them to write the script. This is great news. Simon and Edgar spent months reading screenwriting books and breaking down their favorite films into the 3-act structure. They were really doing the thing, they kept office hours for this. Fun fact, while writing the movie, Edgar Wright ran into Ricky Gervais in London and told him he was working on a movie called Shaun of the Dead. Ricky Gervais said, "That's not really the title, is it?" That's hilarious, Ricky. Yes, it's the title. Film 4 was really trusting Edgar Wright with his directing capabilities to make sure this movie became what he wanted it to be, and that's pretty awesome. And apparently Edgar Wright came into the studio with 400 pages of storyboards he had drawn with his brother Oscar. Word on the street is they filmed most of the storyboard as is. This man drew a movie. I want to talk way more about what I love about this movie. That was just the background. Let's go. Hi there again. I am going to jump around to my favorite parts and details that make me love the movie so much. I'm leaving a lot out, so go watch it, it's good. Shaun of the Dead centers around Shaun and all of his relationships. Here we have his girlfriend Liz of 3 years and his best friend of even longer, Ed. Shaun and Ed share a flat with Pete. Pete and Shaun get along well, but Pete thinks Ed is a good-for-nothing moron. Shaun is not as close with his mother Barbara as she wishes, and he has a very rocky relationship with his stepdad Philip. Liz's two friends, David and Diana, are dating. David hates Shaun, Di wants what's best for Liz. And finally we have Yvonne, which is Shaun's ex-girlfriend. She's not in the movie much, but when she is, it's important. She's kind of a vehicle for familiarity. So in the first scene of the movie, we see Edgar Wright's wit and how he introduces these characters. We open in on Shaun and Liz having a very heartfelt moment with each other about their relationship and their problems and how to fix them.
It's not that I don't like Ed. Ed, it's not that I don't like you.
Sorry?
Through the cut, we see the boundaries, or lack thereof, their relationship, not only on Shaun's side, but on Liz's as well.
It's not that I don't like David and Di, you know. Guys, it's not that I don't like you.
Alright.
Right off the bat, within 3 or 4 setups of the movie, we get this, and we understand what kind of movie we're dealing with. Edgar Wright is not going to throw things in your face. It's all kind of, oh, that was funny, and I like that. Right off the cuff, we learn everything we need to know about the characters and how they're going to interact throughout the movie. Shaun is a bad boyfriend. Liz has not met his mother, even after 3 years of dating. Liz is normal. She's not asking too much of anybody. Ed is a man-child, for sure. David might be obsessed with Liz, and Diana genuinely wants to help Liz, despite her boyfriend being in love with her. This opening scene perfectly lays out who we're dealing with and how they're going to interact. Not these, but the core 5, we know what's going on. It is so nicely done. I just really enjoy that first scene. In the opening credits of the movie, we see people living their lives very slowly, very groggily, and it's kind of a way of saying like we were zombies all along. And it gives the film kind of a woke, we live in a society kind of feel. And I really enjoy that. I think it makes it more meta, more important that way. But it's not really a huge point in the movie. It's just something that I've read and picked up on. But I love it. Jumping forward some, the funniest part of Act 1 of this movie is how long it takes Shaun and Ed to realize what's going on. They're completely oblivious to the outbreak. They have no idea. During production, the first 2 shots they did were 2 long take, 1 shots, or oneers if you're nasty. Both of these shots show Shaun walking through the streets and buying something at a convenience store. One happens pre-outbreak, one happens post-outbreak. Subtle nuances show the differences in these two shots. A homeless man asks for change, later on he's a zombie. One of them shows a guy lightly jogging by, the other one shows a man booking it. Some windshield is broken, there's blood on the glass. I think that the juxtaposition, vocab word, of these two shots to show what has happened is done so satisfyingly. That was like 5 syllables, I'm on my word game right now. Other than that, more and more hints are dropped along the movie. The newspaper headline, bus goers having nothing behind their eyes. The magnificent fainting woman. Mr. I eat birds over here. There's a whole scene where in the foreground a conversation is happening between Shaun and Yvonne, and in the background there's a man being assessed in his car and he's totally dead. There's always some kind of narration going on in this movie. Whether it's something in the background or a note, it is always more information that we pick up on that makes sense later or right now. It's all very important to the story, and I know movies are like that, but it's different here. Fun fact, because they couldn't afford to hire on people just to play zombies, Edgar Wright called a favor in to a friend who wrote for Ain't It Cool News, where he wrote, Shaun of the Dead is going ahead. This does mean we will need an inordinate number of willing subjects to play Legions of the Living Dead. If you've ever harbored a desire to lurch, shuffle, gnaw, and be shot to bits, this is your chance. We may not be able to pay you, but we will be able to transform you into a member of the living dead so you can make a suitably scary big screen debut. I'm in. I'm there. I'm gonna be right there. Hop the pond to be on Shaun of the Dead. I'd do it. And boy, did it work. Loads of fans who loved Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg's work from their TV show Spaced were more than happy to dedicate multiple days sitting in the hot sun caked with makeup and with cheap contact lenses in their eyes. For free. Later on, Edgar Wright would state that the fans were paid £1 for their service, which is $1.30 in American dollars. It's 1.18 euros. It's 107 rupees. Certainly not enough to be paid for the work they did, but they were just passionate to be there with Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, and I love that. So anyway, we know all the characters, the opening scene happens. Things look bad for Shaun and Liz's relationship, but there's a moment of hope when he promises to take her out somewhere that's not the same pub, the Winchester.
Things will change. Promise.
Really, Shaun?
Not in the way you might think. Cut to the next day, we see more into Shaun and Ed's relationship.
I'm sorry, Shaun. That's all right. No. I'm sorry, Shaun. Oh! Oh my God, that's rotten! I'll stop doing them when you start laughing.
He's gross, he's gritty, but it's a sweet relationship they have, and I like it. He's got his moments for sure. So the first zombie we see is right here as he stumbles into the, oh, that's just Shaun. He's tired. It is exactly that. Look what I can do, expectation subverting that Edgar Wright does best in this film and his other stuff. And I love that. I do. Shaun goes to work and he buys his mom flowers so we can gloss over all that. Leaving work, he runs into Yvonne.
How you doing?
Surviving?
Fun fact, this actress stars alongside Simon Pegg in the TV show Spaced. Low-key a nod to the audience of like, hey, we know why you're here, since it was Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's first movie. Nick Frost's too, he was in Spaced. Shaun and Liz are on really bad terms after Shaun suggests they go to the Winchester after promising that he wouldn't do that again. So Shaun goes to Liz's flat, buzzes in, and gets no answer, so he resorts to climbing.
See you in a minute. Don't.
Hi, it's me again.
And he can't do it, he just can't climb it, and that's hilarious. So he buzzes again and he gets in and he talks to Liz and they end up breaking up. There's a whole scene with David and Di where David is all up on Shaun's case about being a bad boyfriend. Shaun goes off on David.
Basically, I'd say your 9 lives were up, Shaun.
Get fucked, Four Eyes! Why do you go out there, you love her so much?
T. That's hot gossip right there. I really like that scene because we see more into Dave's whole thing. I do not like Dave. Shaun is torn to pieces after the breakup, so him and Ed go to the Winchester for a few pints and hog lumps. And it's here that Ed inadvertently lays out the entire plot of the movie right in front of our eyes.
Have a bloody merry first thing. Have a bite of the King's Head, couple of the little princess, stagger back in. Back at the bar for Shaun's. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
No.
Not only is that cool, Fried Gold is Nick Frost's Instagram account to this day. Little fun fact for you. One day later, Shaun and Ed finally see a zombie but mistake her for a drunken girl.
Oh my God. She's so drunk.
Fun fact part 7, there was a showmance on the set of Shaun of the Dead, Mary from the garden, and the homeless man from the Wonders we talked about earlier. One quote from the book I read about the movie states, "Sadly, the zombie romance between Horton Jupiter and Nicola Cunningham was over. She dumped me 3 days before I got the Shaun of the Dead DVD in the post, and I was watching it weeping," unquote. Poor guy. But what good lore is that? I just like knowing that. I just like having the information. Pete the roommate has always been on Shaun and Ed's case about leaving the front door open. Who's gonna leave the door open? These two? But I can't believe that. What if like a bug flies in? So after dealing with Mary and another zombie in the garden, they come inside and they realize the door's open and a zombie lets himself in. Obviously the door's open. That line is hilarious. Fun fact, originally that line was supposed to be, he's got a fucking arm off, but they wanted to use it in the trailer, so they dropped the F-bomb. Is that one fun? I wonder if that one's fun. And the actor's name is Tim Bagley. I wonder if I'm saying that right. He lost his arm in a motorbiking accident and says that acting has had a profound impact on his life. How cool is that? So after dealing with him, Shaun and Ed realize what they're dealing with, zombie apocalypse, and hatch a plan to rescue Barbara and Liz and go to, you guessed it, the Winchester. Shaun naturally calls his mother and gets some bad news.
Mum, have you been bitten?
No, but Philip has.
Oh, okay.
I love how much he doesn't care about Philip. It's funny. So now Shaun and Ed have on the itinerary to kill Philip, but first Shaun's gotta take a wee. So he goes upstairs and he finds a zombified and naked Pete in the shower. God rest his soul. Dying naked has gotta be one of the worst things. It's not gonna be me. I will at least have on my jean shorts. Later on they make it to Barbara and Philip's house and they've got no idea what's going on. Totally oblivious, more than they were earlier. Philip just thinks he's under the weather, even though he got bit earlier.
I'm quite alright, Barbara. I ran it under a cold tap.
That's gotta be one of the funniest lines in this whole goddamn movie. I love that so much. Barbara's actually oblivious for most of the movie, and it's kind of sad. And also, I mentioned this earlier, but Ed is totally in love with Barbara.
I love my mum.
Yeah, I love his mum.
Ed.
She's like butter.
Ed.
Shaun and Ed then take Barbara and zombie-bitten Philip, I don't know why, to try and rescue Liz. Once again, in the callback of the century, Shaun tries to climb up the flat and...
Guys, can you let me in, please?
He did it! Love conquers all! Love wins! They have a long conversation. David is not on board. Diana trusts Shaun, but at the end of the day, it's Liz's choice on whether or not all three of them go. And they do. But where, do you ask? Where else would Shaun take them? Shaun, the Winchester last name. That's exactly why she left you, Shaun. What are you thinking? So everyone here stuffs into Philip's Jaguar, and it's in this stuffed car that Liz and Barbara finally meet.
And, Mum, this is Liz. Liz, Mum.
Hello.
They're just alike, it's cute. Earlier on, getting into the Jaguar, Philip gets bit one more time in the neck and is actively bleeding out in the car. Randomly, out of nowhere, I don't know why, he gets all sullen and sulky and sad and dull and synonyms. Him and Shaun have a really sweet heart-to-heart about the tribes and tribulations of stepdaddery, and it's honestly one of the more heartfelt moments of the film. Until Philip fucking dies, he turns into a zombie, and Barbara is immediately in shock, obviously. Locking him in his own Jaguar, they're now all on foot. It's right here that I want to point out that many featured extras before the outbreak show up later as zombies. Mary, this person in line, the bald boy, Noel from Shaun's work, Nelson, Snake Hips. It is almost like every shot in this movie is some kind of foreshadowing. Most of every detail comes back later, and I find that so interesting. That's why I've got all this going on. This is why I'm making this. This is my favorite part of the whole film. On the way taking backyards and alleyways to the Winchester, this group runs into Yvonne and her group, and they parallel these characters. Each character has a counterpart that's mirroring them. And also, Matt Lucas from the Great British Bake Off is here. That's fun. I actually didn't realize he was in this movie until my 5th or 6th rewatch. I was like, oh, it's the guy from The Thing. Anyway, they continue on their voyage to the Winchester. The mom has a weird run-in with a zombie, but seems okay. And they end up acting like zombies to get through a big horde of them, which is what I would do in this situation. I would go totally method. Their plan quickly backfires because Shaun and Ed get into their first argument of the film. Right here, right now, at the buzzer, game time. Why now? Save it. It's gonna be okay. David, suddenly being confident out of nowhere, busts a window open. Why did you do that? We were gonna be in there, and Shaun ends up running through the crowd of zombies, riling them up, and leads them away. So everyone else goes in and boards up the window. Fun fact again, during these shoot days with the most zombies on set, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were known to keep people entertained even when things were not going well. It is mentioned in the book on the movie that Nick Frost was known to impersonate a chef from South Africa and say, "Never be scared of a risotto." And that is such a special detail to me. I hold that close to my heart. Anyway, now that they're in the Winchester and things are quieting down, David is bitching up and down about the situation they're in and how Shaun has killed them and he's not coming back.
Mini chatter.
David!
Twiglet. Oh, look, hog lumps.
He's okay. He did it. Even when Shaun comes back, David won't stop questioning him about why they're here, how he got rid of the zombies. What are they gonna do now? David, no one knows.
There is a back door, David. Tried to tell you before you went and smashed the window.
Well, I wasn't the one who was blowing our cover by having a tiff with my boyfriend.
He's not my boyfriend. Might be a bit warm, the cooler's off. Thanks, babe.
I love what Shaun and Ed have. I strive for it. So the power comes back on, and all the TV stations are down, and it's not looking good. In a moment of boredom and stupidity, Ed turns on the loudest slot machine you've ever heard. Every zombie in town is at the Winchester now, on the outside, waiting. I would be too. Seeing all of the zombie shadows arise, Shaun puts a hand on Liz's shoulder. Ed puts a hand on Barbara's shoulder. And the zombified pub owner puts a hand on David's shoulder. Oh my god. It's here that the most iconic scene of the movie takes place, and I mean it so hard. Randomly, the jukebox strikes on and starts playing Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. And in a moment of quick thinking and underestimation, Shaun grabs pool cues, and they all kind of go around him, dancing to the music. I love that. This scene is extremely reminiscent of Edgar Wright's later movie Baby Driver and how music drives the narrative, and I love that so much. It makes it so enjoyable to watch. And licensing music for film is not cheap. An article I read, okay, it was just the headline. Okay, fine, it was a TikTok, stated that Led Zeppelin might charge $250,000 for a song in a movie. Queen only charged Edgar Wright $15,000 for the use of Don't Stop Me Now, which is not cheap by any means for 2 minutes of screen time, but better than a Led Zeppelin song. Better music too. Fun fact, if Don't Stop Me Now would have been too expensive, the backup song was Rasputin by Boney M, which I think would have been just as good. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but David in this movie is a total bitch. In the first 2 acts of the movie, he does nothing but overstep boundaries, be the nice guy to Liz, tell Shaun what he's doing wrong. Now all he's doing is complaining and whining about the situation they're in, and I'm tired of it. Like, this isn't ideal for any of us, David. Shaun's mom reveals that she's been bitten, and Shaun is obviously going through the motions.
It's been a funny sort of day, hasn't it?
Oh no, 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 come on, stop it, stop it, stop it.
This is the saddest part of the movie, and I often forget about it. It's so sad. Most of the crew consoles Shaun. David immediately wants to shoot Barbara to deal with her. Why are you suddenly choosing to make your own decisions? You have been passive this whole time, except for when you fucked things up and broke the window. You should probably go. It's here that there's a big yelling match, and everyone knows that David's been in love with Liz the whole time. Diana's made peace with it. Shaun is obviously going through his own thing. His mom just died. David's obviously embarrassed, and I would hate to be him right now, but I'm happy he's him because I hate him. David backs off, things calm down, but then Barbara comes back. Right away, immediately, get this. David gives Shaun the gun and says, "You do it."
You do it.
Are you fucking kidding me, David? Had that been my mom and he handed me the gun, I would have pulled my phone out, looked up how the gun works, looked both ways, and shot him between the bifocals. My mom just died. Don't be like that. Shaun shoots his mom, and it's really heavy, and I often forget that happens in this movie. It hits really hard.
Well, I think we're all agreed. You did the right thing there.
I hope he dies. I hope David gets ripped apart by zombies. This is when all hell breaks loose, for realsies this time. Shaun punches David, which is awesome, and David grabs the gun and tries to shoot Shaun, but it's not loaded.
David, no! Dave!
He was gonna murder Shaun. Where did his gall come from, and how can we return it? David gets up and decides he's gonna leave. Liz is like, "No, that's suicide. I think you should do it. I think that's a great idea, David. Do it." And in a moment of satisfying poetic justice due to David's assholery, he is suddenly torn apart by zombies from the window. I don't care about you at all. I'm happy you are dead. This is the most satisfying part of the whole movie. This is why I rewatch it. And on a more sad note, Diana immediately runs after him with his own leg and definitely dies off screen. She runs into the zombies. What are you doing? She deserved better. I'm also updating the looks of Shaun and Liz because a lot has happened. Me too! Anyway, back to hell breaking loose. Shaun and Ed notice a familiar face.
Johnny, look who it is!
Pete, wait a minute. If you're here, then who's naked in the shower as a zombie in our flat? Pete bites Ed, and Shaun lets out the most defeated scream I've ever heard come from a person.
No!
Shaun sees his best friend get bit by a zombie and knows that it's the end of him. That's kind of the worst thing about zombies, is the impending doom once you're bit. You know zombies. No, it is really touching how Shaun reacts to Ed being bit. You know, it's his best friend. It's his buddy. It's his babe. One quick shot shows Pete getting shot through the head. Alex Hope, co-founder of the visual effects company Double Negative, is quoted in saying, Pete's head being shot needed to be really in-your-face gory, so we used watermelons. It works a treat. I just really like how he says the word treat there. This right here is my favorite visual gag of the film. I just love that. So all three of them go down to the cellar behind the bar and contemplate suicide say. Ed has seen better days. He's bleeding and about to become a zombie. They choose not to do the deed when they realize there's a working lift that goes into the street, but they have to leave Ed.
I'm sorry too. It's okay. No, I'm sorry, Shaun. Oh, God. That's not funny. Stop doing it when you stop laughing.
For such an immature laugh, that's one of the more heartfelt moments between them, and it really is sweet. Fun fact number 807, in the first test screening of the film, it ends with Liz and Shaun emerging to the streets and being surrounded by zombies. When this didn't go over well with the test audience, Film 4 asked Edgar Wright what he would do with more shoot days. He was asked to give them 3 ideas, an expensive one, a mid-level one, and a cheap one. The expensive one involved zombified Philip pulling up in his Jaguar and crashing into the Winchester, saving them. How awesome would that have been? What actually happens is Shaun and Liz emerge to the streets and are rescued by the military and... Yvonne, what are you doing here?
How you doing?
Surviving.
It's a big circle, this movie. It's all happening. It's all right here. 6 months pass. We see another zombie enter the... Oh, no. That's just Shaun again. He's just tired. Shaun and Liz have moved in together and all is back to normal. They watch TV and see how the world has changed since the dreaded Z Day. And freaking Coldplay makes an appearance because apparently Simon Pegg and Chris Martin are like this. In the very last scene of the movie, Shaun goes out to the shed and plays video games with Ed. Why is Ed here? Sorry, no, that's not Ed. That's a zombie. Why are you keeping a zombie? That shouldn't be allowed. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think I would do that. I wouldn't keep a zombie. That's not Ed. And that's the movie. That's what happens. Now let's talk about the reception. It was most important to Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg that George Romero, creator of the original Night of the Living Dead series, enjoyed the movie, so they sent a copy his way. At the time, George Romero was living on an island in Florida when an agent from Universal came with a copy of the movie. They watched it together alone in a local theater, where I like to imagine they shared a large popcorn and a box of Raisinets. George Romero instantly fell in love with the movie and called Edgar Wright to tell him just that. Romero likes the movie, nothing else matters. It's a mission accomplished for Edgar Wright. Some more early ticket holders of the Shaun of the Dead love train include Quentin Tarantino, Peter Jackson, Sam Raimi, Guillermo del Toro, and Stephen King. Obviously fantastic news, these are huge names. Film critics here in America wrote rave reviews about the film, which drastically helped its case here. Shaun of the Dead placed 8th on the box office charts here in America, which was a huge deal for a film not made here. Apparently the all-British cast was of concern, but I have a counter argument here. Being American and being used to the accents here, anytime I'm watching anything with other accents and a new dialect, it kind of seems otherworldly. Like this is obviously not happening in a neighborhood near me. I feel the same when I watch anything Bridgerton or Dairy Girls, I don't know. But yeah, the film was a huge success and deemed an instant classic. And now 21-year-olds all across the world can bask in the details and make YouTube videos about it. And they might get McDonald's later to celebrate. I think he will. Anyway, on the surface, Shaun of the Dead is just some zombie movie, but I think it's got such fun quirks and great lore that it's more of an experience, not to sound like that. And yeah, watching the movie so many times like I have obviously takes away to a certain extent. But if you haven't watched it or you've only watched it once, I urge you to watch it again. It's worth it. There are more details you pick up. Watches 2 and 3 are the best watches of this movie. Number 1, you're like, oh wow, that was a zombie movie. 2 and 3, you're like, whoa, this is not just any zombie movie. I'm watching Shaun of the Dead. I didn't even mention half of the visual Easter eggs or the funny moments. They're all over the place. Give it a shot, I urge you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take pride in the fact that I'm not wearing pants because I've got fake blood all over me and I kind of made a mess. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.